Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I wanted to talk about this issue right here, She-Hulk 40. Now this book I've seen with the, what do they call that? That's in the plastic and all that stuff, go for about $200. Here it is in all its glory, not in any sort of plastic, just sitting here. The She-Hulk issue. Now, I could spend a lot of time with the She-Hulk and the history, but I only spend some time on the She-Hulk as far as, I guess, him working, or John Byrne working on the She-Hulk. Now, this was the She-Hulk graphic novel. This you could get basically anywhere, right? Say it's a little, she has some sort of risque outfit on, and she's having a little fun in this book right here. This one, the first She-Hulk graphic novel, not the first comic book, but doesn't cost that much. She-Hulk, Savage She-Hulk #1, possibly cost a bunch, right? Because you got the first appearance of the She-Hulk in her own series. Here is She-Hulk #1, right? You got this one. I don't know how much this costs. But this was actually a top 10 book for Marvel. So when this came out, West Coast Avengers was selling pretty well for Byrne, and also the She-Hulk was selling pretty well. This was a top 10 comic book. The first 4 issues were in the top 10, right? You had this one. You had this one. I got another, but I don't need to show that. You got the one with Spider-Man, right? This is right around the time McFarlane was going crazy. So this is a bunch of homages to McFarlane. I don't have 4 here. I thought I had it back together. But anyway, and at some point, John Byrne was abruptly cut because this was his last issue, issue #8. Right after the glowing start, selling decently for Marvel. They got into a disagreement with the editor. The editor was like doing a graphic novel. The graphic novel, they were kind of changing what Byrne was writing, changing some of the dialogue to sort of fit in with the graphic novel, which didn't sell anything. So Byrne was removed. But Marvel was always like, we could always just get someone. We'll get Steve Gerber, who's a talent. They had Brian Hitch. You know Brian Hitch, very famous from the Ultimates. Sales tanked, right? So Renee Witterstatter, she decided, she was the editor, and she asked Mike Zeck, what should I do? What should I do? I'm the editor of the She-Hulk. And Mike Zeck said, get Byrne back. So they got Byrne back. But at this point, the sales did not blow up, right? So I wanted to do a series of this, so I'm just going to talk about issue 40. So I'm going to do a quick overview. And as you go, it has some jokes on the cover, right? So you have a couple gags. I think this was one of the first to sort of gag Demi Moore's thing. Then of course you have the Exhumed. You got a chicken gag. You got this going on. Cheesemo. You have a sexy cover. And you have this, right? So it still didn't sell. So Marvel at this time, I think in 91, this is 92, because X-Men is rolling at that point, and I could have something to show you. I think Image is out at this time. So it was all brutes and babes, to use Bart Sears' comment. You could see this in, I think, Jim Lee's X-Men. I guess a little bit in Rob Liefeld, if you like sort of Rob Liefeld's women. But ultimately, Byrne is sort of doing a gag on the babes sort of comic books, right? So he kind of pushed it to the limit, right? This is it because you demanded it. So now the idea would be, if this was sort of a thing, he was going to spoof it. But at the same time, this book isn't selling. So whenever people use this as the She-Hulk, what is it, let's put it right here, issue 40, it sold so much. Then you go and look at it and you're like, oh, okay, look at this. How could he do this? And the thing is, didn't sell, didn't go through the roof because he was doing the X-Men and he said this would subsidize She-Hulk and Namor, right? And you have this. And what did I want to say about this? And then you also have the gag having Renee in the book as she was on cover issue number 31. But then she had to get ready. And then I thought this was a little more risque than the other pictures, but at the same time, this is what they would do in Archie comic books. But of course, it's a She-Hulk. But since we're here, where's the story at? The story is, look, the Bond Phantom is actually, this is a character development with her. She struggling with a weight problem. Look, the problem is that this is such a fun series that you should actually read this story. This is actually a lot of fun. And when you get to that, this is the hook of the story. This is one of the bits that going on there. And Byrne also has the bit where she goes in person and everyone is kind of taken with her. And nice dual shade, a lot of cool stuff in here. And once they get the story, her car has been kitted so it can go into space. That was by the US-1 guys who traveled through space. And then all the stuff sort of similar to what Kirby used to do, but kind of visually sort of works within the story. What else we have here? Something's gone wrong. They can't find where to go. And then, of course, while they're going, they get saved. And this is one of my favorite panels here. I skipped through the whole stuff, but I'm saying this one, like this action shot with Wheezy, is one of my favorite panels, right? And some more ads. The rocket. We can't look how small the rocket was back then. And then we have this bit with, I think I skipped some pages. Oh yeah, here we go. So we got US-1, Byrne ran out of dual shade, and they start telling you what happened, right? So there's a meteor shower, and then at the same time, the Spragg that was released was actually Spragg from earlier as I scanned through those covers. So this is a very involved issue. But whenever it's been pointed out to be sort of sexist, I like to point out, the only thing I really wanted to point out that the book was not, the idea that this was, Bill Gemmis said that it was a big, these type of books are nerdy kids' weekend. Like, this book was not a big seller. This is sort of spoofing the sort of good girl art, the Marvel spit and pin-up stuff, and all that stuff that's going on here. And the same bits would be covered in those things. So, it's like, I don't know. It's just sort of poking fun at the situation. And for some reason now, this is $200. Of all things, you go, it's like $150. The average, say on average, is $150, $100 in sort of some sort of plastic. The CGC sort of things. And that I just cannot understand. So I'm sitting here with my comics, with my Vision thing that's now supposedly $200 for a couple of weeks, and it's just totally insane to me. Doesn't make any sense. Because these books were sitting around and they would say came from the quarter bins. And at the same time, now it's like, oh, look what they did. bring this comic book and say, look at this comic. This comic is what everything that's wrong in it, but and that sort of thing. But I always wanted to go through these things. So depending if you if you guys like this, I will go back and go through it because it's a good this one isn't the best example of the dual shade, but in this one, this is really cool printing from Marvel. Marvel didn't always do a good job with the dual shade, but the She-Hulk run kind of was, when he was doing it, was pretty good. So ultimately, that's my time. If you can buy it and get outraged and say, how could he have done this? How could he play a gag on, have fun with the audience and that sort of thing? You can do that, but at the same time, at the time, it wasn't X-Force. It wasn't, and that's the thing. Oh yeah, what am I doing? I should have shown you that. Here we go. So we go to the stuff that's in that you could buy. The Savage Dragon is out, Spawn's out. We have Youngblood, Valiant. All this stuff is going on. So some of the, I guess Spawn Dragon has some good girl art in it. Youngblood, maybe. These posters, I don't think so. But Marvel and DC would do I think is Catwoman out at this point? They don't have much stuff in here. But this is the ultimate test. Look at all of the mega hits here. Look at all the poster book here. You have Dark Knight Archives. And if you go to Marvel, look at all the stuff that they're selling. All the stuff that's going on here. And no She-Hulk. Not a She-Hulk in sight. So, that's basically it. If She-Hulk had somehow registered here, then we could kind of say it's a big deal. But ultimately, the She-Hulk success was cut short because of some sort of editorial disagreement. I think over the second She-Hulk graphic novel, which became a two-part prestige format, which I guess nobody remembers, but somehow it took precedence over the She-Hulk series that was doing very well. And ultimately, that's one of the things I think was instilled from Jim Shooter, that the characters are what's important, and the characters are important. But at the same time, when you have a character like the She-Hulk, who, wasn't really selling, we already had a series, so the draw would be, hey, what would Byrne do to it? This guy came off Superman. He's doing numbers on the West Coast Avengers. Let's see, he did a really nice She-Hulk in the graphic novel. Why not let him do the She-Hulk? Let's see what happens. They came up with a thing before Deadpool, it's kind of a jokey thing, and then they cut it short. And we don't know what could have happened. Maybe the She-Hulk, this run of issues ran for about 60 issues. I don't think any annuals. They just had the graphic novel that didn't really do much. But there you go. Covered She-Hulk 40. Spin Rack out.